Contents of this episode may not be suitable for all. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Staircase. I'm your host, Nathan.
I'm your half-host, Nicholas.
And today we have some super exciting news. We are officially launching Staircase Conspiracies.
Yes.
And Nick, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, this is going to be awesome because everyone loves a good conspiracy. And we're going to be talking about a lot of really juicy ones. Don't know if it's true or false, but that's up for you guys to decide. And we're going to present you with the cases, and you can decide if it's true or false, if it's too hard to believe or not.
Yeah, so every episode we'll take turns telling each other a crazy conspiracy that we've have done some research in and looked into. And this is just going to be a good way to keep getting more content to you guys as often as possible. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I can't wait to tell you this story, dude, because this is so crazy. So whenever I think about conspiracies, I was searching a whole bunch of them. And there's this one in particular that I was like, this has to be our jumping off point. Because for me, it is like the conspiracy theory or conspiracy, just case, unsolved mystery. And it is the infamous case of JonBenét Ramsey. And let me tell you, dude, when every article I looked into, everything I looked up, there is just a new suspect, a new possible set of clues. It just seems like a never ending rabbit hole of possibilities for this case. And it just, every detail just kind of takes it to like another step, and it just kind of gets like a little overwhelming. So I'm going to do my best to tell you this story, give you the most likely suspects that I think are probably the most plausible. And then at the end, you can just everyone can just guess for themselves what they think it is. It's still an open case to this day. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about this. I know nothing about this case, honestly. I know the name. I don't know what it's all about.
It was pretty popular whenever I was a kid. I remember seeing her face on all of the news magazines and things like that. So, yeah, it was pretty popular, but a lot of people I've talked to were like, yeah, I've kind of heard the name, but I don't really know anything about it. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
All right. So this is the infamous unsolved case of beauty pageant contestant and 5-time winner, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey. It's 1996 in Boulder, Colorado, in the early morning of December 26th, when Patsy Ramsey woke for a glass of water. As she descended her staircase. See what I did there?
Dude, so this is about a child?
Yes, she is a 6-year-old beauty pageant contestant. There's no easy way of saying this. It was towards the end of her life that it was a short amount of time. I mean, so it is about a child.
Dude, for some reason, I think I get these cases mixed up, a lot of these cases, because we were talking before, like there's been so many of these, especially back then, I get them all confused. So I thought it was a grown man.
Because of John.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Let me clear that up. JonBenét Ramsey is a little girl. Oh
my God, it's a girl too.
That's a little boy. Okay,
oh my God.
Not funny. All right. Anyways. Okay. So as she's walking down the staircase, she notices a 3-page letter on her table. And this is what the letter reads. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession.
Ooh.
She is safe and unharmed. And if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills.
Wow, that's oddly specific.
Well, I'm glad you clocked that, because that will definitely
be a reason for that, right?
Yeah, that will make a return. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. Do you know what an attaché is?
I guess some sort of a bag or something.
Yeah, it's a briefcase. Yeah, odd choice of words, that's for sure. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier delivery pickup of your daughter. A lot of earliers in there.
Oh, that's word for word on the note?
Word for word, yeah. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial.
Dang.
The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, and so forth, will result in your daughter being beheaded.
Dang.
Strange that they put and so forth. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies.
What?
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 What is this ransom letter, dude? It's strange. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try and outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult.
Wow.
Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Whoever wrote this is how it's signed. Victory with exclamation point. SBTC.
SBTC.
Yeah. So as soon as she reads this, Patsy throws down this letter and runs upstairs to her daughter's room, only to find it empty. She's gone. She then wakes her husband, John, and from there, the police are called. When the police arrive, the neighbors are already inside the home and began comforting the family. They're like talking to Patsy and her husband, John, and they are, trying to figure out what's going on. They live in a pretty nice house. This house is essentially a mansion. The surrounding neighbors also are just curious of, kind of what's going on.
Dang, so they came into the house.
Yes.
While they were there. Oh my gosh.
The house began to fill as people poured in and out of the home. They would wait all morning for the phone call, but soon 10 a.m. would come and pass with no phone call from the kidnapper. Linda Arndt, the detective at the time, would note that the Ramsey family didn't seem to notice that the call had not come. The phone call was supposed to be there between 8 and 10, and 8, 9, 10 a.m. came rolling around and no phone call ever came from any kidnappers. And it was kind of odd that the family was kind of not really noticing or looking for if my son was taken, I would think I'd be waiting right next to the phone, of waiting for that to happen. So the detective clocked that and thought that was definitely something odd. She would eventually ask the family to search the home for any evidence of an intruder. She would ask John, the dad, specifically to search upstairs. However, John would go downstairs into the basement. Within minutes, he would return upstairs holding the lifeless body of John Benet Ramsey in his arms. He laid her on a nearby couch. The detective, Art, would run over and she checked her pulse and was seeing if she was still alive, and the dad looked at her right in the eyes and said, "Is she dead?" And she just said, "Yes."
Oh my gosh.
Linda Arndt would later on say that the way John looked into her eyes was very odd, and she said it was a very odd moment to be had with him. Now, if my son was taken, who knows how I would react?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be normal acting. I don't know what normal would mean. This brought a lot of scrutiny onto the family.
Well, I think I already kind of know how this is going, but we'll see. I want to see how this ends.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the ending is still...
I hope I'm wrong. Let's just say that.
Yeah, so this is where the story really starts to break down. So let's talk about this ransom note. So experts say that most ransom notes are short, sweet, and to the point. We have your daughter, we want this amount of money, and we'll call you later. But this wasn't exactly what they got. Instead, they received a 3-page letter, almost like a 3-page book on a kidnapping. Additionally, why make a ransom letter if you plan to kill the child?
Yeah, man.
So that also is very strange. And typically when a child is kidnapped, they're not found inside of the home, especially within hours of the abduction.
Yeah.
So back to the letter. The request for $118,000. You remember you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
So this was the exact amount that John Ramsey had received as a Christmas bonus that year.
Oh.
So he actually had $118,000 was coming into the family. Whoever did this had to have known that they were about to come into $118,000 to ask for $118,000. Very strange figure. This all stuck out to investigators, which led them away from the burglar theory and began setting their sights on the Ramsey family. And to make matters worse, the Ramsey family were totally uncooperative with the police department. Instead of cooperating with the police and talking to the police, they would actually go to a news outlet that John knew a producer of and was able to announce a reward for the return of their daughter, kind of talk about the case on national television instead of working with the police. So that definitely rose a lot of questions regarding the Ramsey family and potentially
for sure, dude. Going on TV and stuff would be the last thing in my mind. I mean, I guess if it helps, but not before you go to the police and whatnot.
The Ramsey family would later say that they were advised to not communicate with the police because of how the detectives were kind of handling them during the finding of JonBenét Ramsey. Like I said, Linda Arndt, the detective, had her eye on John pretty much from the beginning.
That's interesting.
Let's move on to the autopsy. JonBenét's autopsy would reveal that she had died due to beating, but the coroner would report the actual cause of death was strangulation. Upon further investigation, detectives found a slew of interesting clues that would only add more questions to the case. The ransom note was written with the pen and on the pad of Patsy Ramsey, the mom, indicating that the letter was written inside of the home. So whoever broke in, grabbed her pad, grabbed the pen,
wow,
and wrote
that's
right
interesting
there.
that they found that out.
A first draft of the note was found in the trash.
Oh my God.
Revealing scribbled out words.
Oh geez, come on.
Words like possession was misspelled in the note, while words like attaché was spelled with the correct accent.
What?
A rope was found outside of JonBenét's room that the family did not recognize. Multiple footprints were found outside of the house that did not match anyone in the home. Bits of red strands of fabric were found on the sheet she was found in. But the most important bit of evidence found were trace amount of DNA on her underwear. The DNA would be tested against over 1 million sex offenders and child molesters.
Dang. See that? I always find that so amazing that they can just do that.
But nobody was a match.
Wow.
The investigation would turn back to the Ramsey family, and motives would be explored. First, John Ramsey. Perhaps he was abusing his daughter in secret, and she was ready to tell.
Yeah.
There are images of her arms from beauty pageants that showed multiple bruising. So the theory is maybe she was about to talk.
Dang.
Next, Patsy Ramsey. Maybe she had enough of JonBenét's bedwetting, a known issue in the Ramsey household. Maybe an aggressive display of correction turned deadly. And finally, Burke Ramsey, her 9-year-old older brother. Could he have had something to do with his brutal killing? Maybe he was jealous of the attention his sister received. Maybe playtime turned sinister.
Golly.
This last theory led investigators to point out that Patsy Ramsey may have helped cover up her son's murder under the guise of a burglar and crazy ransom letter.
Even if it was a 9-year-old son, how in the world would he have gotten rid of the body and whatnot? Even if it was the kid, the parents would have been in on it too.
That's exactly what the investigators were thinking, that if Burke Ramsey was involved, then the parents have to be involved, or at least one of the parents have to be involved.
Wow.
And the reason why they suspected, maybe the mom is because the weapon that was used as a strangulation device, it's basically a rope that's tied around a stick, and then they can tighten the stick, which tightens the rope. And that stick was a paintbrush of Patsy's. So there's a lot of indication that it was on Patsy's notepad. It was Patsy's pen. It was Patsy's paintbrush.
Yeah.
There's a lot of indications that maybe it was Patsy more involved and the son, potentially.
Yeah, wow.
This new theory, however, would quickly be debunked when each member of the Ramsey family did not match the DNA found at the scene of the crime. Now that we've ruled out the Ramsey family, let's get into other suspects.
All right.
All right. Well, let me first say this, that I've narrowed down some suspects. There is like an almost unlimited amount of suspects
Yeah, totally.
that you can draw from. So if anyone wants to look into this case, you're going to see way more than the suspects that I'm about to reveal. This to me is just the closest suspects that I found. That might have lined up. So first up, we have Bill McReynolds. He was an elderly gentleman who often dressed as Santa Claus for the Ramsey Christmas parties, which he was in attendance of just 2 days prior to the killing. So in 1974, his own daughter was also kidnapped.
Do you know what that came of that? Like with his kid?
Unfortunately, I don't know what came of that. She, all I do know is that she was kidnapped.
Stay away from that guy.
Additionally, his wife had written a play where a child is molested and then murdered in a basement.
Come on, dude.
Not good, right?
Wow.
According to the Denver Post, this man felt close to JonBenét, stating once, "Her murder was harder on me than my own operation. She made a profound change in me." He even brought a vial of glitter gifted to him by JonBenét Ramsey into his heart surgery.
Wow.
The gift was special to him because he had never been given a gift while playing Santa before. And he told his wife once, "If I die, mix her glitter with my ashes."
What? Weirdo.
Just alarms going off
dude,
left
totally.
and right. However, despite coming across as just a little bit creepy, there would be no evidence suggesting Bill McReynolds' involvement in the murder. And he has actually since died.
Oh, geez.
Which brings us to our next suspect, neighbor Gary Oliva. In 2016, 20 years after JonBenét's murder, he's arrested on unrelated drug charges. In his backpack, police found a photo of JonBenét.
God, dude, everyone's obsessed with this poor girl.
I don't know what it is. Just creeps, bro. Creeps. So he explains to the Denver Post, "JonBenét's murder touched me very deeply. I felt she was an exceptional girl whose death was an exceptional loss. I felt the need to build a monument, a shrine to remember this little girl."
Bro, come on, dude.
Just like,
poor judge of character, man. Golly.
so bad. So this is actually where the story gets very, very interesting. A high school friend of Oliva, Michael Vale, would reveal to In Touch magazine that the day after JonBenét's murder, he received a phone call from Oliva stating, quote, "I heard a little girl. I heard a little girl." End quote. Vale would also reveal that Oliva also told him the location of where he had hurt this little girl. Boulder, Colorado. Records would show that the only reports of any child in that area that night that was hurt was JonBenét Ramsey. Vale also told reporters that the method of strangulation used on JonBenét Ramsey is the same method Oliva used on his own mother when he attempted to kill her.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, so this thing is called a garrote.
Who's ever heard of that? Like, wow.
However, although his involvement seemed assured, his DNA was not a match to the DNA found at the crime scene.
Man, all these obvious suspects are like, they're getting ruled out.
Yep, all of them just get ruled out one by one based off of this DNA. So next is John Mark Carr. Now, I'm going to save us a lot of time and just tell you that this guy was just wasting everyone's time. An investigator, Michael Tracy, would spend years befriending Carr until he finally admitted in 2006 to the killing. However, his accounts of the murder did not match the actual events. And to put the nail in the coffin, John Mark Carr's DNA was also not a match.
Wow. So he wanted to go to jail? What? Why do
So
people
this
do
guy, this guy, oh my gosh. Okay. So this guy is a teacher. He's like a substitute teacher, and he gets fired for messing around with little kids at the school. He also gets a divorce from his wife, who he's got 3 children with, and they get a restraining order against him, and he's not allowed to go see them. Well, this sparks some sort of journey for John Mark Carr, and he ends up going around the country, teaching to kids in other countries. That's just like what he was doing. Wow. And so he ended up talking to this investigator. So I think that John Mark Carr just wanted some reason to get back into the United States.
Oh,
and I think this was the cheapest way to get back into the United States. Now, he's also a creep in his own right. He is also like a sex offender, and his own charges. Does he fit the case? Yes, he does. Also not a match. But this guy is just a genuine creep with child pornography charges and 2 underage marriages. One just 13 at the time.
What?
And so I'm assuming that's probably in another country he got married to someone.
Totally.
Today, he lives as a transgender woman by the name of Alexis Reek.
Of course he does.
Very, very strange person. Which brings us to our final suspect, Glenn Myers. This guy is not on the radar as often as I've seen on other articles and other news outlets and stuff like this.
Right.
He was looked at by police, but we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But this is not one of your top suspects, but I found some information that really puts him to me as a definite candidate. Just 2 days before the murder, the Ramseys' neighbors, an older couple, the Barnhills, were in attendance. The Barnhills would often watch JonBenét's dog when the family would travel, and since the Ramseys planned on leaving the morning after Christmas, they were currently watching the dog. The Barnhills were extremely close to the Ramseys. However, the Ramseys had no idea that the Barnhills had a guest living in their basement, Glenn Myers. Divorcee, who owed a lot of money, didn't have any money, and found a small space with the Barnhills for rent in their basement. His ex-wife, Charlotte Hayes, was interviewed, and she reported abuse from Glenn over the course of their marriage to her and her kids. He had no kids of his own, but he was especially mean to her youngest daughter. Glenn left the state and returned home almost immediately after the murder, and Charlotte reported that he hung photos of the young beauty pageant star all around his apartment from newspapers and magazine cuttings. The night of the party, Glenn came looking for the Barnhills, and based on his oddity, John Ramsey, her dad, pointed him out to the investigators, writing to see if it was a match to the ransom note. Charlotte, his ex-wife, also felt that the ransom note's handwriting was Glenn's. Charlotte was so convinced of his involvement that she would point blank ask him if he was involved in the murder, to which he would only smile in return.
Wow.
Creep. One final thing to note regarding Glenn Myers, and this is the most important bit of information that I was able to dig up. In the basement of the Barnhills home, where Glenn was living, is a picture of an old World War I plane. Across the plane is the word victory.
Oh.
This plane was more accurately known as the SB-2C.
No, dude.
The ransom note was signed Victory SB-2C.
Yeah. Dang.
Unfortunately, his DNA also did not match.
Wow, okay.
And in 2005, Glenn Myers passed.
That's crazy.
It gets crazier. In a stunning turn of events, a recent CBS program had Dr. Henry Lee, a DNA expert on the O.J. Simpson case. He studied the DNA from the JonBenét Ramsey scene. He found that the undergarments may have held transferred DNA from the manufacturing process. And he proved this by testing unopened bags of underwear.
Wow. So like the people packaging it?
Yes! Yes! The CBS program concluded that the crime scene DNA was considered fallacious, meaning that conceivably any of the listed suspects could again possibly be the killer.
Wow.
Making the case even more open-ended than we already thought that it was.
Unbelievable, dude.
So every single person that we said was getting ruled out based on that DNA
It could have been them.
could now be the suspects all over again.
Definitely the guy with the freaking plane, dude.
One last thing here I'd like to leave you with. And Nick, this is the most important part.
Okay.
Barbara Kosnick was a close friend to the Ramseys. Her daughter was best friends with JonBenét. And on the day before her murder, JonBenét told her daughter that she was getting a special secret visit from Santa after Christmas. Barbara attempted to correct JonBenét, saying, quote, No, Santa comes tonight, end quote. To which JonBenét replied, quote, My Santa said he's giving me a visit after Christmas, end quote.
Creepy, dude.
Creepy. So that is the wild case. And I only covered probably just like a small window of the whole case. But those are my top suspects. I would love to know what you think about this and who you might think it is. And, if anybody has any suspects of their own, definitely leave them in the comments so we can look into those too. But what do you think about that?
That's insane. So nobody has been arrested to this day?
To this day, nobody.
Oh my, dude, it has to be the guy with the plane, dude. Those coincidences are too perfect in order for them to be just by chance. Like, it has to be him, dude.
Well, the DNA was ruling out all of the suspects. So, and each suspect kind of had some plausible motive for doing it. So the fact that we now don't have that DNA to rule them out, now all of them seem just as reasonable as another. Okay, so this is kind of like what I think happened. Do you remember Bill McReynolds, the old man who dressed up as Santa, and his wife had written a play about a very similar murder to this?
Right, yeah.
And we remember Gary Oliva, the guy who was found 20 years later in his backpack. He had a photo. There was 2 sets of footprints found outside of the home of the JonBenét Ramsey home. My personal thoughts is that Bill McReynolds visited her as Santa Claus, got her into the basement, and had Gary Oliva also help him so that because he was an older man, he got a younger guy who was also a neighbor that could kind of help him facilitate getting down into the basement.
Yeah.
He would write a ransom letter because he knew the family. He knew how much money that they were probably going to be coming into. He writes a ransom letter. Something goes wrong downstairs in the basement with Gary Oliva and JonBenét Ramsey because she's found killed. And remember earlier, I told you that investigators found red fibers in JonBenét's clothing.
Yeah, right.
Which could also indicate a Santa Claus suit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I have no idea. We'll never really know. Bill McReynolds has since passed, but I think that you can speculate all day. I mean, if you had to pick one of these suspects, who would you pin down?
Definitely the guy with the airplane, Glenn Myers, because I just don't think that's possible for it all to be just a coincidence. The initials and the name and all that.
He lives next door.
It has to be. It has to be, bro.
Oh, here's another detail about Glenn Myers. They had the dog, which means he knew he could break in without the dog barking.
Right, yeah.
You had to have known that the dog wouldn't be there.
That's a good point too, man. This is crazy, bro.
So that concludes and keeps an open conspiracy and a unsolved case continues.
Totally, man.
So this is Staircase Conspiracies. This is going to be our new template moving forward. We hope to get content out every single week. Nick, you're up next week. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, dude, I'm really pumped about this one. I know a lot of conspiracy theories, so this is going to be a really fun journey on this new show that we have. It's a great idea. So next week, I'm going to be covering a aspect of the dark web or the deep web, something called red rooms. And believe me when I tell you, it is insane and absolutely disturbing. So be sure to check out that. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and let us know what you guys think down below.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Red Room, I have no idea what you're talking about, so I cannot wait to hear what you have in store for us next week.
Yeah, man. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm pumped about this.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Later. Stay safe.